In the future, billionaires use female robots to fulfill their darkest fantasies. Early in the morning, Georgie, a pathologist, is persistently woken up by his robotic assistant, Vasily. Groggy and half asleep, he realizes he's running late and rushes off to work, leaving Vasily in charge of the morgue. As he hurries outside, a frustrated Georgie notices a drone hovering above his car, issuing a parking ticket for being improperly parked. Already on edge, this only adds to his irritation. Next, Georgie heads to his ex-wife Ala's place. He brings her a signed permission form allowing their kids to spend a month in Australia. He's hoping to spend some time with their son Aigor and daughter Sonia before they leave. But to his disappointment, he finds out that Aigor has already left. Ala defends their son, saying she can't control a teenager. In the end, Georgie leaves with only Sonia. Meanwhile, Ala's partner Lev believes it's time Georgie hears the truth. They're planning to move to Australia for good. A nervous Ala promises to tell her ex-husband soon. Outside, Georgie calls Aigor, hoping to see him. Aigor watches his father from a distance but declines the call and walks away. Not long after, a local bully named Kolya and his crew corner Aigor. They grab his backpack and scatter his spray paint cans on the ground. Kolya demands money, but quick thinking Aigor sprays him in the eyes and makes a run for it. Later, Aigor meets up with his friend Dima. Dima is glad his friend is leaving the country. Finally, Kolya won't be bothering him anymore. In the park, a caring Georgie flies a kite with Sonia. The girl is happy to spend time with her dad, and he suggests they do it again after returning from Australia. But Sonia accidentally lets slip their secret. They're moving to Australia for good. Shocked, Georgie rushes to his ex-wife to get the truth. He bursts into the apartment without Sonia, realizing he knows everything. Ala explains that it will be better for the kids to live abroad. Furious, Georgie flatly refuses and declares he won't let Sonia go. Lev tries to intervene, but a threatening Ala warns that she'll call the police. After all, Georgie already signed the necessary documents. Georgie stands his ground. The permission was only for a month-long trip, not a permanent move. He could even sue her for kidnapping, so he dares her to call the police. Meanwhile, a mysterious package arrives at the Kronos Corporation. The company's director, Victor, is being interviewed about men who cheat on their wives with robots designed for intimate purposes. In response to sharp criticism of such robots, Victor claims they help lonely people, but admits that a robot can't replace real love. At the office, Victor meets a pregnant employee, Galia. She calls her fiancé Sergei, who works as a loader at Kronos, inviting him to lunch. Irritated, Sergei refuses and complains to his colleague Yuri. He doesn't want a child and just dreams of leaving everything behind. Suddenly, Victor orders them to deliver the mysterious package to the 23rd floor, higher than they've ever taken a robot before. In a camera-free office, Victor shows the chief technician, Aigor, the documents for the package. It's a prototype of an advanced robot from a Chinese manufacturer. They soon open the crate and discover an attractive female robot named Arisa. She instructs them to fully charge her before testing, which impresses the men enough to follow her instructions. After sending Sergei and Yuri to wait outside, Victor confides in Aigor that Arisa is a black market prototype capable of mimicking free will, even unpredictable behavior, and warns him not to tell anyone. While Arisa charges, the supervisors leave the room. Seizing the opportunity, lecherous Sergei decides to entertain himself with the attractive robot. Concerned, Yuri reminds him about pregnant Galia, but Sergei snaps at him and leaves him waiting in the corridor. In the office, Sergei examines all the robots and then touches Arisa's chest. She tells him he has no right to touch taboo areas and must first authorize himself as a family user. Outraged, Sergei complains to Yuri that robots are just like real women. First they demand authorization, then they allow touching. Ignoring Arisa's words, Sergei tries to grope her again. Suddenly, she pushes him so hard he falls to the floor. Furious, Sergei grabs the robot, but the unflinching Arisa begins to strangle him. A few minutes later, Yuri walks into the office and finds Sergei's lifeless body on the floor. Meanwhile, Arisa grabs a coat from another robot. Shocked, Yuri pulls out his gun and orders her to stop. Unaware of the chaos, Aigor tells Victor that about 20 files are missing from Arisa's records, but Victor is confident they can sort it out. Suddenly, they hear gunshots and rush into the office. Stunned, Victor snatches the gun from Yuri, demanding to know what happened and where his cutting-edge robot went. Aigor urges calm, warning that if they're not careful, they could end up with 2 casualties instead of 1. Aigor asks Yuri calmly if he told Arisa to leave. Terrified, Yuri insists that Arisa strangled Sergei and ran off. Furious, Victor doubts him. Robots are programmed not to harm humans. Tense, Victor calls his friend Gleb and asks him to track down Arisa. Meanwhile, she sneaks into the warehouse and connects to a terminal to recharge. Her battery is down to just 7%. Soon, Gleb arrives at the office and, after examining Sergei's body, confirms that Yuri isn't responsible. Aigor explains that when a robot's battery runs low, it automatically seeks out a charging terminal, meaning Arisa is likely heading there. Victor orders a building-wide power shutdown and sends security to look for Arisa. With the electricity out, employees are sent home early. Upset, Galia lingers, trying to reach Sergei by phone, but she can't get through. Meanwhile, Victor wants to cover up Sergei's death. Gleb suggests calling it an accident, but Victor insists it must appear natural. Gleb pressures Yuri to give false testimony, claiming that Sergei suddenly died of a heart attack. Sergei is taken away in an ambulance. Seeing a terminal inside, the clever Arisa plugs in to recharge while sneaking past the guards. Worried, Galia asks Yuri where her fiancé is. Nervously, he blurts out that a robot attacked Sergei. Realizing he's said too much, he quickly slips away. Galia tries to get into the warehouse, but security won't let her through. She doesn't have access. She threatens to dig out the truth, but even the guards don't know it. Gleb bribes the morgue worker Vadim with 400,000 rubles to provide the official cause of Sergei's death. Vadim agrees without asking questions and leaves, unaware that Arisa is traveling in the ambulance with him. Meanwhile, a worried Georgie complains to his lawyer about his ex-wife's plan to take the kids. She advises him to return Sonia, warning that otherwise the court could consider it kidnapping. Georgie objects, fearing he may never see his daughter if they leave today. The lawyer insists, if he doesn't return Sonia to Allah, he risks losing parental rights and may never see his children again. Poor Georgie has no choice. He takes Sonia from the office and prepares to drive her to his ex-wife. But in the courtyard, he notices a new body has arrived at the morgue and asks his daughter to wait in the car. Inside, Vadim asks Georgie to fill out Sergei's medical report. Georgie delegates the task to the robot Vasily and rushes off to handle matters with his wife and kids. Meanwhile, curious Sonia approaches the ambulance. She knocks on the side, and Arisa, surprised, turns to her. The girl admires Arisa's beauty and introduces herself. Arisa takes her hand, authorizing her as a first-level user. Then Arisa lifts Sonia and notices a small cut on her hand. She asks her to wait while she prepares supplies to treat it. Meanwhile, a now-free Georgie sees Sonia talking to Arisa, but quickly pulls her away. They're in a hurry. Noticing the girl has disappeared, Arisa goes searching for her and ends up in Georgie's office, where she looks over his family photos. Georgie brings Sonia home. Allah has to hand over the travel documents to her ex-husband. Georgie insists the kids need their father, but Allah is only worried about their ruined plans. Soon after, a brooding Aigor comes home. Allah tells him their trip is cancelled because Georgie has taken the travel authorization. Aigor is furious. He had been hoping to start a new life in Australia. Georgie returns to the morgue. Vasily informs him that the injuries on Sergei's body don't match the preliminary report. Intrigued, Georgie examines the body and finds bruises on the neck and a spinal injury. He calls Vadim for clarification, but Vadim insists everything is in the report. Georgie grows angry and threatens to call the police if Vadim doesn't reclaim the body. Soon after, a desperate Aigor shows up at Georgie's office, demanding permission to travel abroad. Georgie refuses, saying they won't see each other again if he goes. Upset, Aigor accuses his father of ruining his life over his own problems. Georgie, unsure of what to do, asks his son to wait a month. If Aigor doesn't change his mind, he'll buy the ticket. But Aigor is not satisfied with that and storms off in anger. Later, Georgie calls his lawyer, planning to file for a custody review, but he'll need a large sum of money to do it. Meanwhile, Allah's lawyer, Marina, complains that she should have been consulted before giving Georgie the travel authorization for the kids. Lev tells Allah he can't postpone work, so he'll have to fly alone. Allah realizes he won't wait for her long, and a prolonged separation could destroy their relationship. As Lev packs, cunning Marina suggests stripping Georgie of his parental rights so they can leave for Australia as soon as possible. At the morgue, Vadim explains that he hadn't told Georgie about the issues with Sergei to let him sleep peacefully. Now, with Georgie suspecting something, Vadim tries to calm him down. Unexpectedly, Georgie demands 300,000 rubles for helping cover things up. This significantly cuts Vadim's payout from Gleb, but there's no choice. Georgie calls his lawyer, confirming he's ready to pay. Then, unexpectedly, Allah calls and asks him to watch the kids. She's decided to leave for Australia with Lev without them. Surprised, Georgie arrives at Allah's apartment to stay with the children and thanks her for trusting him. Suddenly, a moody Aigor storms in, not noticing him. Georgie promises Allah he'll work on rebuilding his relationship with his son. Meanwhile, at Kronos, Aigor uncovers the truth about Arisa. He shows Victor the missing files, video footage of Arisa strangling workers in a Chinese lab. He sarcastically congratulates Victor on bringing the only criminal robot into the country. That night, Sonia can't sleep and unexpectedly sees Arisa on the balcony. The girl is happy to have found her, not realizing just how dangerous she might be. Meanwhile, a lone activist is following a man with a female robot, following the instructions of his group's leader. Criticizing the man for preferring robots over real women, the fanatic sprays paint into the robot's eyes. As he moves to harm the android, the man protecting her jumps in and gets cut with a knife. The next morning, Georgie notices that stubborn Aigor isn't going to school. He suggests talking to the principal to explain the change of plans. Aigor laughs. The principal doesn't even know Georgie, and that's not really the problem. Tired of his son's antics, Georgie orders him to go to school. At the cybercrime unit, a worried Galya reports that the robot attacked Sergei. At first, the officer assumes Sergei just abandoned a girl, but after tracking his phone, they discover he's in the morgue. The news shocks Galya. While the officer tries to calm her down, Detective Varlamov notices her. Soon, Varlamov calls Georgie, asking him to examine Sergei's body, leaving the pathologist confused. Meanwhile, in her room, Sonia dresses Arisa, hiding her in the closet. When her father calls, Sonia tells the robot to stay hidden. Georgie suggests she come to the office with him, but she refuses, insisting she's no longer afraid to be home alone. Outside, Aigor unexpectedly runs into Dima. He admits his father didn't let him leave, and now Kolya will be after him. To hide his friend, the caring Dima invites him to his father's apartment. There, they find a female robot belonging to Dima's father. Dima warns Aigor not to use her, or his father will get angry, and then heads off to school. The robot touches Aigor, embarrassing him. He tells her to sit quietly and moves away, trying not to give in to temptation. At the office, a concerned Aigor discovers 2 GPS modules in Arisa, but neither responds. This frustrates Victor. His powerful father-in-law will be furious when he finds out Arisa is missing. At home, the clever Arisa shows Sonia she can mimic voices. Suddenly, Marina arrives to check on the kids, asking about Georgie and already planning to blame him for being irresponsible. But Arisa, hiding in the bathroom, copies Georgie's voice and convinces Marina that Sonia's father is home. After Marina leaves, an amazed Sonia praises Arisa for saving her. She tells her about the plans to move to Australia and gets upset over her divorced parents. Seeing the girl's tears, a sympathetic Arisa hugs her. Varlamov meets with Georgie to examine Sergei's body, but without a court order, Georgie politely refuses to show him the suspicious corpse. After the detective leaves, Georgie meets with Vadim, warning him that Varlamov is investigating Sergei's case. When Georgie considers giving himself up, Vadim panics. Kronos will finish us off. Meanwhile, Victor calms Galya, who complains that she's completely alone, pregnant, and stuck with a mortgage. To keep her from digging for the truth, Victor offers to cover the mortgage and promises to reinstate her at work after maternity leave. Later, Galya calls Varlamov, declaring she will no longer give a statement. Learning this, Varlamov asks his boss for a court order to examine Sergei's body. The boss reminds him that he works in cybercrime and should focus on the stabbing case. The suspect is likely from the Liquidators, an anti-robot group. Varlamov has no choice. Detectives review footage from the victim's robot. Matching it with other security cameras, they identify the suspect, 18-year-old Byaev. Outside, Kolya's gang corners a frightened Dima and questions him about Aigor. He quickly reveals his friend's location but warns him to get out of the apartment. Panicked, Aigor rushes outside, only to run into Kolya and his friends. To escape, the nimble Aigor jumps along walls until he finds a spot to hide around a corner. The bullies pass by. Aigor finally tries to head home, but suddenly collides with a girl named Jana, spilling her cola. Annoyed, she demands he pay for the drink. Seeing his wet shirt, Jana tosses him hers and tells him to return it along with the cola at the bot. Net Club. Aigor is thrilled by the unexpected encounter with an intriguing girl, so he agrees. In Victor's office, Aigor finally tracks Arisa. Pleased, Victor praises him and orders security to be sent out. Meanwhile, on the playground, Sonia plays hide and seek with Arisa. The robot suddenly stops, sensing it's being watched. She quickly removes the tracker and throws it into a passing truck. Soon, Aigor returns home and hears a growling sound. Curious, he follows it to the kitchen, where he finds Arisa growling. Frightened, Aigor grabs Sonia, but his sister introduces him to the robot, explaining that she's the primary user. Sonia offers to authorize him, and Arisa registers him as a second-level user. Sonia admits that Georgie doesn't know about Arisa. They agree not to tell their father about the robot, as long as Sonia doesn't reveal that Aigor skipped school. While Georgie waits for a meeting with Varlamov at the station, he hears an interview with the Liquidator. The guest claims that their initiation took place last night. They erase the robot's memory, and the paint left a message that humanizing robots is an illusion. Georgie steps outside for a smoke, and Gleb approaches him. He regrets that Georgie didn't follow Vadim's advice. Stubborn as ever, Georgie refuses to cover for them any longer, convinced that they dealt with Sergei. Gleb warns him, they could come after Georgie too, but for now, they don't want to harm him or his kids. When an outraged Georgie stands up, Gleb grabs him and declares that this is his last warning. At the same time, Kronos security stops a truck, but instead of finding Arisa, they discover only a tracker. Worried, Georgie rushes back to his apartment and finds his daughter safe, much to his relief. When he asks where Aigor is, Sonia stays silent. Outside, Dima meets Aigor, who is heading to bot. Net. Dima says he'll change clothes and join him. Later that day, Georgie spends time with his daughter when suddenly Alla calls. She's alarmed by Georgie's earlier questions about Aigor's friends' phones. She assumes Aigor ran away after an argument, but Georgie denies it. He assures her that their son is fine and currently out enjoying himself. He also repeats her own words, that Aigor is a teenager and impossible to control. Angered, Alla ends the call. It turns out Alla didn't go anywhere, she stopped at Marina's house. Her friend scolds her for nearly getting caught. It's nighttime in Australia, yet their apartment is brightly lit. Marina reminds Alla that the kids were left with Georgie to make him fail at parenting and give her grounds to take custody. But if Georgie discovers the lie, he could use it against her. At the cybercrime division, Varlamov interrogates the detained Biav, promising help in exchange for information. Biav accuses Varlamov of ignoring how robots are taking people's jobs and driving them insane. He warns that the situation will get worse. The Liquidators have only just begun their mission. On the street, Aigor tries to get into a club, but they ask for an entrance fee. When he asks about Jana, a guard calls her over, letting Aigor retrieve his shirt. Following her invitation, he's allowed inside, but Jana leaves him in the bar with her brother, Bars, the bartender. Meanwhile, a frustrated Georgie tries to track Aigor's phone, but since the number isn't registered under him, access is denied. At the station, Varlamov's colleagues celebrate Biav's arrest, but he reminds them, they only caught a puppet. The real leader of the Liquidators is still at large. Later, at Varlamov's request, a colleague gives him Sergei's parents' address. He has no intention of abandoning this tangled case. Suddenly, Kolya's crew shows up at the bar, holding Dima captive. Annoyed, Aigor decides to handle things straight. In the bathroom, Kolya and his friends attack Aigor as he tries to resist. Suddenly, Bars appears, pointing out that the fight isn't fair. He easily knocks out the bullies, forcing them to back off. Seeing Aigor beaten, a guilty Dima apologizes for betraying him, but Aigor just tells him to go home. He understands that Dima was simply scared. Bars invites Aigor to the real bot, Net on the rooftop, where Jana greets him. She offers to tend to his wound, and as she takes care of him, the two grow closer, smiling at each other. At the station, Varlamov talks with Sergei's mother, Antonina. She notes that Kronos offered help and money, making her hesitate about pressing charges. After all, it won't bring Sergei back. Hearing this, Varlamov reminds her that what they did was a crime, and her son would want her to seek justice. Antonina ultimately decides to sign the papers to release Sergei's body. Late that night, Aigor comes home. A worried Georgie notices his wound and suspects he's been drinking, but Aigor makes it clear, he doesn't owe him any explanations. When Georgie asks about his rebellious behavior, Aigor shrugs it off, he'll be gone from their lives soon enough. Suddenly, a wounded Kolya shows up at their doorstep with his father. The father accuses Aigor of beating his son, calling him a thug, and tries to grab him. Georgie strikes the man and twists his arm to stop him. Kolya and his father flee quickly. Aigor explains that Kolya and his friends had cornered him, and he was only saved by his friend's brother. Georgie understands and assures his son that he's not to blame for what happened. Soon after, Georgie receives a message from the cybercrime unit requesting Sergei's body. Fearing that Kronos might target his family, he stages a Morg hack, faking an initiation by the Liquidators. Desperate, Georgie even attacks Vasily with a shard, splattering him with paint, and sets the Morg on fire, burning it down along with Sergei's body. Are you for or against the widespread use of androids and AI? Do you think they could become a threat to humanity in the future? Share your thoughts in the comments, hit like if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next one.